In Trujillo, Robert Francis Prevost truly began to blossom as both a leader and a pastor. His deep commitment to the people of Peru was not just administrative, it was profoundly human. He immersed himself in the language, the customs, and the struggles of the people. His days were filled with teaching theology, training future priests, presiding over sacraments, and handling complex legal matters within the church's structures. But beyond the titles and responsibilities, it was his humility and willingness to listen that set him apart. People trusted him. They saw in him not just a priest or a foreign visitor, but someone who cared deeply about their lives, their worries, and their future. He became known for walking the dusty streets of the community without fanfare, greeting children, sitting with the elderly, and attending to the sick. His theological depth and pastoral sensitivity were always aligned. He did not separate his intellectual training from his work with the poor. Instead, he brought both together to serve the Church in the most grounded way possible. In 2004, his leadership was recognized in a significant way. He was appointed Bishop of Chiclayo, a coastal diocese in northern Peru. As bishop, Prevost brought with him the same principles that had guided him since childhood: faith, service, discipline, and compassion. He focused heavily on improving clergy formation, promoting vocations, and expanding outreach to marginalized communities. Under his guidance, the diocese strengthened its social services, built new catechetical centers, and invested in youth ministry. He also emphasized transparency and accountability, calling for honest dialogue and responsibility among the clergy. Throughout his time in Chiclayo, he continued to be more of a servant than an administrator. He was often found praying quietly in parishes, helping coordinate community efforts after natural disasters, or advocating for justice in public forums. He did not seek attention, yet he drew deep respect. His long-standing service in Latin America, combined with his legal and theological training, made him a trusted figure beyond Peru. The Vatican began assigning him to various synods and commissions, asking for his advice on pressing issues facing the global church. He contributed to conversations about reform, the role of religious orders, and the future of mission work in developing nations. His input was thoughtful, well-informed, and deeply pastoral. He was not driven by ideology, but by a desire to serve God and God's people. In 2014, after a decade of episcopal leadership, he returned to Rome, where he took on new responsibilities. In the Curia, he was appointed by the Pope to the Congregation for Bishops, one of the most important departments in the Vatican. His role involved evaluating candidates for episcopacy across the world, a task that required discernment, experience, and a clear vision of the Church's pastoral needs. His voice carried weight, yet he continued to approach his role without arrogance. He listened carefully, valued collaboration, and always kept the needs of the people in mind. Those who worked with him described him as deeply spiritual, highly intelligent, and strikingly humble. He rarely pushed himself forward, yet he was frequently called upon when complex issues arose. His ability to balance tradition with a clear-eyed view of contemporary challenges made him a bridge between generations in the Church. By the time the conclave was called, his name was not on many public lists. But among the cardinals, his reputation was well established. He was known for being a steady hand, a man of integrity, someone who could unify rather than divide. And so when the votes began to converge, it was not out of political calculation or media speculation. It was a quiet recognition among his peers that the Church needed someone like him, a shepherd, not a showman. His election marked a turning point. Taking the name Leo XIV, he signaled a return to the values of humility, charity, and deep faith. The choice of the name Leo was seen as symbolic, a nod to earlier popes who defended the faith with clarity and compassion. But more than the name, it was the man himself who began to reshape the tone of the papacy. In his first public appearances, he avoided grand statements. Instead, he spoke of mercy, dialogue, and the power of listening. He urged bishops and priests around the world to renew their commitment to the gospel, not through words alone, but through service. He called for simplicity in church operations, for openness in communication, and for deep care of the poor and forgotten. One of his earliest initiatives was to convene a worldwide synod focused on pastoral care. He invited voices from all levels of the Church, laypeople, religious and clergy. Under his leadership, the synod was not just a formality, it became a space of honest reflection and shared prayer. Difficult topics were not avoided. Instead, they were engaged with courage and compassion. As time went on, Leo XIV began quietly reforming the Roman Curia. He did not make headlines or issue dramatic decrees, but gradually he improved transparency, encouraged collaboration, and focused the Church's attention on mission. His emphasis on listening, especially to voices from the global South, gave new energy to local churches in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Despite the weight of his office, he remained personally grounded. He continued to rise early each morning for prayer. He celebrated daily Mass with small groups, often choosing to preach himself rather than delegate the task. His homilies were simple, filled with scripture, and marked by the kind of wisdom that comes from years of pastoral service. As he entered the later years of his papacy, Leo XIV remained committed to a church that walks with its people. He resisted the temptation of ideology. He avoided polarizing language. Instead, he reminded the world by example that holiness is often quiet, faithful, and rooted in love. His legacy will not be measured by dramatic gestures or viral moments. It will be measured by the hearts he touched, the reforms he nurtured, and the spirit of humility he restored to the papacy. In an age of noise and division, he became a sign of peace and unity. And so, the untold story of Pope Leo XIV is not a tale of ambition, controversy, or spectacle. It is the story of a life given in quiet fidelity, a life that echoes the heart of the gospel, reminding all of us that greatness in the Church is not about power, but about service.